For workers at Holden's manufacturing plants in South Australia and Victoria, these are uncertain times. The federal government's negotiating with Holden over a new round of funding the company wants to build its 2 new models after 2016. If the funds don't materialise, Holden has said it will pack up shop and leave. For years now, there's been a heated political debate about the car industry and whether it should continue to survive on government handouts. But buried under the politics are the workers who face losing their jobs. Now, new research obtained exclusively by 730 suggests the impact of Holden's closure would be far worse than initially thought. Alex Mann reports from Adelaide's northern suburbs, home to Holden's South Australian plant.
In 1960s Adelaide, the satellite town of Elizabeth was on the rise.
In fact, I think the Elizabeth shopping centres are as modern as you'd find anywhere.
Its economic heartbeat throbbed to the sound of its booming manufacturing industry centred around the General Motors Holden plant.
And General Motors Holden's is pretty big business up this way now, with a modern, well-equipped factory in very pleasant surroundings.
The suburb was a model in urban planning, with cheap housing and plentiful jobs in its many manufacturing plants.
New factories create new jobs, and in Elizabeth there are new factories, all types of industry, light and heavy.
You want some strawberries, Rory?
Yes.
Now, for a new generation of Holden workers, that optimism is long gone. It's been replaced by uncertainty over the plant's future and this community's capacity to deal with its closure.
I do talk about the uncertainty of Holden's with other guys on the shop floor, and the feeling from them is pretty much the same as me. How can you plan anything for the future when you don't know if you're going to have a job in a couple of years?
Yes, I do it with Caleb and Brody and Jackson.
Kane Butterfield has worked at Holden for almost 14 years. The prospect of life without a Holden paycheck is daunting.
I've got no idea how I'll be able to support my kids if Holden's closes. Just taking them to school might become difficult. You ready, guys?
In the company car Kane Butterfield uses to take the kids to school, he picks up his workmate, Mike Beauchesne. The two men have been carpooling to Holden's Elizabeth plant for about 4 years.
Hey, Kane.
Hello.
Today, the pair drive across town to the now dilapidated home of General Motors Holden.
It'll be a huge impact on the northern suburbs. It's a prospect that's not very good. It'll become a slum, a very big slum.
Little now remains of the suburb's utopian past. Today, Elizabeth and its surrounding suburbs have some of the country's highest unemployment, entrenched welfare dependency, and little to absorb the shock of the expected job losses as Holden and its suppliers steadily wind down their operations.
The northern suburbs have been going through pretty difficult times, and I think as a lot of people appreciate, it's one of the most vulnerable parts of the South Australian economy. It has, in parts of northern Adelaide, very high unemployment rates. So a major shock like this is only going to further compound those problems.
John Spear has just completed a new study examining the contribution of Holden's Elizabeth plant to the South Australian economy and the potential impacts of its closure. He says it'll cost the state more than $1 billion and 13,000 jobs. That's double yesterday's estimates from the Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries.
It can be a tipping point. So there are many businesses, and they're quite substantial, medium and large-sized businesses that supply into Holden's, and they rely on Holden's for 50–60% of their business.
At this manufacturing plant, just 20 minutes from Holden's front door, Greg Lowe and his employees are busy creating essential components for Holden's latest model cars.
It's only breaking fuel lines, but it's got to be right, and it's got to be right every time, and there's a lot of skill and investment goes into this, and if you lose it, it's gone forever.
TI Automotive is just one of the many Australian businesses connected to the Holden plant.
So how dependent on the existence of Holden here in South Australia is TI Automotive?
Entirely dependent. I mean, the products we make are very difficult to ship, so we need to be as close to the customer as we can be. Yeah. And this plant exists entirely to serve Holden, so if Holden's not here, we won't be here. It's that simple. Could you imagine if Holden closed? Of course the supply base would close down as well. You're talking thousands and thousands of jobs that are going to go. Now, where will those people find work? I mean, look at my boys. It's like, where will they go?
It was March 2008 when Adelaide's last car manufacturer called it quits, sending almost 1,000 workers into the job market.
It was going to come. It was going to come.
John Spear says if Holden does close, it will make Mitsubishi's departure look like a minor economic inconvenience.
Mitsubishi closed during a time when the economy was relatively buoyant. It's much less likely that people who lost their jobs through the closure of Holden would be able to find alternative manufacturing jobs.
Mark Wells and Peter Milich took a redundancy in June after almost 20 years each with Holden. Since then, both have struggled to find full-time work.
Those skills at Holden, you might be able to use them out, but I think most of them are more done for production reasons than that.
And are there many jobs like that for people to get in Elizabeth anymore?
There's not
a lot of production jobs around.
Not in this northern area.
Mark now works a casual job for 20 hours a week, while Peter is still unemployed. Both have completed security certificates, say they're willing to travel outside of the region, and are on the hunt for something more permanent.
The only way I'm going to get back into the workforce is get more qualifications, get some stuff behind me so that I've got skills to get back into the workforce.
All eyes are now focused on the negotiations between the federal government and General Motors Holden. Industry Minister Ian Macfarlane has ordered a Productivity Commission review into the viability of the Australian car manufacturing industry, with an interim report due before Christmas.
What this government is doing is playing chicken with the international automotive companies in this country. It's playing with the lives of up to 200,000 Australians who depend upon this industry.
If it's going to close, then the federal government will have to put in place some sort of substantial structural adjustment package.
Well, I guess a lot of people leave because they get a redundancy package where they've got some money and they've got a plan to go and do something. I don't know what I would do if I left. Where would I start? It's obviously getting closer to that point where you feel like maybe I should have left.
Alex Mann reporting.